Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Conversations. I'm truly excited tonight. We got a lot to unpack. This is a very, very powerful episode that probably will hit home to some and bring awareness to others. You can always catch Conversations on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. So, my special guest today is Valencia McLean. Um, this is a story that is very real, to be listened to its entirety. And when I was interviewing Valencia, it just really made me think a lot about my circle, my friends, bringing awareness of my surroundings and my safety. So, we're going to talk about domestic violence. It doesn't have to be Domestic Violence Month. It doesn't have to be Domestic Violence Day. It happens every day. So, domestic violence is very real. It's in different forms, but it's something that everybody needs to stop, pay attention, and listen to. Everybody knows that Conversations is what? Unfiltered, straight, no chaser. But this one is very sincere and dear, and I'm so happy that she's able to share her story and talk to her story. I think, Valencia, this is 2 years after the fact, right? So one of the things I have to put out there up front is that some of the things she is not able to talk about in its entirety, the events and how it led up to what really truly happened due to her legal contract with her attorney. When I interviewed her, there are some things that she's going to cut off and not go really deep about, but I had to put that out there that due to her legal situation right now, some of the story is not going to be able to be told, but it's going to be enough of it that it's very powerful story. So, Valencia, I'd like to welcome you to Conversations tonight, and I thank you for your transparency, your time, and that you allowed me to be able to have you as my host and tell your story. And again, this is domestic violence, and I have titled this episode Life and Death because once you hear her story, you're going to understand why this is life and death. So let's get started. Valencia, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to all of the listeners out there on Conversations.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank you for having me. I
Absolutely.
am Valencia McLean. I am a mother to two children. My son is 20 and my daughter is 4. I'm originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, but I now reside in Gastonia, North Carolina.
Well, thank you. And we're so glad to have you. And I'm just excited about this. And I think that this is going to be something that, and I'm glad that I was able to create this platform for you tonight. So I want to go, it's a lot to unpack, and I want to get started with your story. So as I interviewed Valencia, I was like, okay, tell me the beginning of the beginning. So Valencia, at the time, had one son,
Yes.
and he was age,
16.
he was, 'cause-
That was 2000. He was about 16.
so he's 16 years old. And you were just a typical single mom, raising your son, loving being a single mom. You relocated to North Carolina, and purchased your first home, right?
Yes.
And you were employed by the United States Post Office.
Yes.
And so she was just a working mom with a son. And then at one point, you said, you know what? I'm ready to live life. My son is okay with everything. And she began, like any single woman, to want to start to date, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about how that started. Because we all meet someone, or we're married to someone, or we have a life partner, or we live together. So tell us how you, once you started dating, how that story unfolded, which was like a fairy tale to me. It was like, wow, you just really met the right one, and this is amazing.
Yeah, I actually started doing the online dating, and I met my daughter's father on POF. And what stuck out to me really was his conversation. It was very different, very unique, and that's what attracted me to him.
And now, for those of you who are doing online dating or have tried it, this is not something horrible. You can meet amazing people, and I know some that have actually met someone online and they have married them. So once he stuck out to you, you took the time. Did you take the time to just date him, or was this like, oh my God, this is love at first sight? And they do have I think it's married at first sight, but it was it love at first sight. And you like, okay, yeah, this is great.
It was great, and I wouldn't call it love at first sight. We did the dating thing first, but we did move kind of fast. But I wouldn't say it was like he's the one. Let me buckle down.
That's okay.
He worked on me.
Yeah. And also, you had a third party, which was your son.
Right, right.
Okay, so
Right.
as it progressed, and as you know, you're like, wow, this is going. He's pretty cool or whatever. How did it fast track to you guys deciding to, or you deciding to let him move in? You just thought like, okay, this is where we are. The relationship is great.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just like, we got together and he came over and he really just never left after that. It was just so, it just felt so normal. It felt good. It wasn't really, wasn't too much thought put into it because it just felt right.
And your son was very comfortable,
Yes.
and
Yes.
y'all were
I
comfortable.
always talk to my son and run everything over with him prior to making that type of decision. So he had his input.
So what did your family think? Like, what? You just met this guy and now he's moving in? You know, posted up?
Everybody was shocked because if anybody knows me, they know I've been single literally my whole life. Having my son so young, I wasn't the one to have, dudes around my son and just in and out and all of that. So it was a shocker for everybody,
I figured
especially when I went to social media with it. They're like, she's taking pictures with a guy. Like, who is this? Who is this guy? What does he have?
I know, like, what's happening here? How long has this been in the works? What is the timeline? Because you know everybody want to do a timeline.
Well, yeah, of course, of course.
So once the social media came out and he had actually moved in, so one of the things, had you met his friends and family? Like, because one of the red flag to most people they say is that I never really met his friends, his family. I didn't hear any stories. There was no pop-ups, no baby mama drama. All of a sudden, wow, you're in a relationship. He moves in with you into your home that you own, and everybody's like, okay, we never knew anything about him.
I only met his sister and his brother, and a couple of his friends. I didn't really meet too much of his family. I won't go into detail too much about his family, but I didn't meet too many of his family members.
Was that something that was on your mind, or you were that blinded and in love?
I mean, he explained to me, the family situation, and I respected it and I understood it. So I never really, thought twice about it. I understood his reasoning for
Okay.
that, so I never questioned it. I understood it.
And so the relationship progresses
Yes.
to the fact that you find out that you guys are going to have a child together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I spoke my baby girl into existence. 16 years apart, my kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Valencia.
Yes.
Oh, he had to be the one.
And that was another thing. Everybody's like, I never thought you'd have another kid. You're what?
16 years apart.
16 years apart. Yeah.
Was it something that you guys had discussed and planned? Like, if we get married, we're already settled in, living together, and he wanted a child. Did he have children previous?
No, the funny part is when I first met him, he told me he didn't even want children. And, we got together, what it takes to have a child. And I kept telling him, like, look, you know what's going to happen. And he kind of like was just like, okay, whatever. And we kind of just planned her out. And
So
arrived.
she was planned.
Yeah.
So your pregnancy was planned.
Yeah.
Okay. So once your daughter arrived, during this whole time, did you see any changes or any red flags or anything? Was there a shift in the relationship once you were pregnant? Because statistics show that there's always signs or something that we missed. So was there something that you missed or a red flag, or you were just so busy working with your son and adjusting that you missed something?
During the pregnancy, no, I didn't see any red flags. Not during the pregnancy.
Okay. And once your daughter got here and he became a dad, how did he settle into that? Because not only was he a stepdad, he was now a new dad of a newborn. And at that point, had y'all even discussed marriage, or that was just a huge adjustment for him. You were or you were okay with how things were.
I was me and him had the same outlook on marriage. We really marriage wasn't the goal for either one of us. We we each did not want to get married, so that was never really a topic of conversation. As far as parenting goes, he did a great job with the kids. Like he was always just trying to make things easier for me, especially because I was breastfeeding, so he was trying to help me out with that. And he was really supportive with, with the baby and even with my son, trying to talk to him and get through to him as far as what he wanted to do, in his future, because he'd be turning 18 soon. I mean, turning 18 or whatever. So he was
He's
real.
just amazing. Like he just dropped down from the sky or
Yeah.
came up on a white horse. Wow.
Yeah, at that particular time, yes.
Okay, so then as we move on in the timeline, and again, I know there's a lot of legalities you couldn't discuss. What was the first time, or what happened the first time there was any, was it abuse? Was it physical, domestic, I mean, verbal, or was it physical? What was the timeline, and was he employed and had not gone? Was he a stay-at-home dad? What triggered him for the first time that you were like, oh my God?
I'm going to be honest, with so much that happened with him, it's really hard to say. Like, I went through so much with him, and it was like,
You can't even remember. You can't remember like what was the first sign.
no.
So as we move forward with the baby's getting, I'm sure, some age on her, and you're still working at this point, right?
Yes.
And was he a stay-at-home dad, or?
Yes, we actually we made the agreement for him to stay at home while I went to work because we didn't want to put her, I mean, my family does not live down here, and with him not dealing with his family, we didn't want to put her with just anybody, so he stayed home with her up until she was about 6 months.
So you were the bread earner,
yes,
in the family,
yes,
and you were okay with that.
Yeah, we had that agreement.
Okay. And so what shifted that the first sign of any type of abuse came?
That I can recall, we had a disagreement. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what it was about. And it turned physical. I kind of blacked out, and I don't even remember how it happened, but all I know is my nose was bleeding, and I had a scar on my face. Um, at that particular time, the kids were actually upstairs. My son came downstairs. He heard the commotion, and that was the first time.
Okay. So I think that one of the things that, and myself having friends that have been victims of domestic violence or abuse, whether it be, verbal or physical. One of the things that once it happens one time and we, you and the person tend to recover, or I say rebound, and we like, okay, everybody was in the heat of the moment or tired or life, the babies, the kids, whatever. Let's move forward. So in moving forward, was there ever a conversation of, do you realize what just happened? Like, do you realize that my nose was bloody? Do you realize our kids are aware? Okay, so was there a conversation? Because sometimes you just act like it didn't happen. And I think that's on both parties, whether it's a male, female, children, whether you just recover, rebound, and move on, and never address, like, do you realize what just happened? So was there a conversation of, do you realize what happened?
With that particular situation, no. But after that, with the events that would occur, he would always tell me, I gave you a warning. I told you this would happen if you did this. Kind of like an ultimatum type of thing. Mm-hmm. But like I said, that particular situation, we kind of just didn't really go back into. We didn't talk about that afterwards.
Okay. And so moving forward with it not being a conversation, and I get it. And that's basically what is always said. I love you. I'll do anything for you. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to say that. And people move on. So was there ever a point at that time that you said, like, this is off. This isn't right. And I'm not that woman. I'm not that chick. Like, there's some abuse going on here that you thought about it and wanted to get, say, maybe I need to talk to somebody to make sure this is real and I'm just not sitting here, being abused.
With that particular situation, like I said, I blacked out. So it was kind of just like I was aware it happened, but I just thought we could move forward and move on and, you know,
Mhm.
get back to what we were.
So I'm sure that that y'all did rebound and recover because he was still in your home,
Right.
and you were moving forward, and you had your daughter. So then, was there a second time?
There was a second, there was a third,
Okay.
fourth, there was a couple. Um, and it always went from bad to worse.
Hmm.
It was never less. It was, that was the nosebleed, then it was the busted lip, the black eye. Um, and then the main one was when he shot me in my foot. That was done with an AR-15, and he actually went to jail for that. They charged him with that. Um, but yeah, that's like I said, it just went from bad to worse.
So you actually got shot in the foot. So with that, and he was in jail.
Yes.
So at that period in time, that gave you space and time in the house alone with you and your children. Did you ever think when he gets out of jail, what, like, let me get some help, let me talk to somebody, let me just sit and process that this isn't real, that I am being abused. And so I need to make a plan or think about what I'm going to do when he gets released. And were you afraid of him?
It's like I was in a trance. It's hard to explain. Um, at the time, like I said, I had baby girl. She was how old was she? She was like 1 years old. And then I had my son, and then in my mind, I'm just like, I need help. I got these bills. I got this. I got that. I'm down here by myself. Like, so in my mind, I'm just like, I needed his help.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like that was the reason why he did it, because I developed an attitude like, I didn't need you. I'm independent. I got this, whatever. So we started, clashing. And I feel like he shot me to make me dependent on him. So at that point, I went back again.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to say, and put out there, that and you're being so transparent, and I thank you for it, is that we get caught up in that, like you said, you did need his help. You might have not been getting it financially, but you needed him because you were the breadwinner. You were the one that going, working, and yeah, come like laundry, a 1 year old, your son, meals. You did need his help, and so when it when you were notified or it was time that he went to court or he was being released from jail, or did you go visit him in jail, what was your thoughts? Like, I can't wait till he gets back home to help me, or the kids are like, when is dad coming home?
No, it was more or less just like, I need your help. I'm in a tight seat. And I hated to do that because if anybody knows me, they know I've been independent for so long. But like I said, with me getting shot with an AR-15, I couldn't walk. I couldn't work at that point. I couldn't do anything. So at that point, I needed help. So at that point, I became dependent on him, which I hated. And he knew I hated it. So that with that, I started hating him.
And so a lot of us tend to think, or become independent women do have something or someone, or there is one thing that we need. And so Valencia, I get what you're saying. But my thing was, is just that at some point, during the separation of him being in jail, and I know that you were shot and you were going through, your family wasn't here. So apparently you didn't have a support or a team or a camp or some good friends. Or did you have friends that was like, girl, you just been shot in the foot. This man shot you in the foot.
I lied about how it happened. Of course, at that time, I became isolated. I started isolating well, I became isolated because I was in that situation. So a lot of people didn't know really what was going on. And the ones that did, they tried to get through to me, but I just, tried to explain to them that I was in a tight seat and
So at this point, I think you said your son was 16, 17 years old.
he was about 16.
About 16. did he have any input, or did your son say to you, or like, Mom, I want to go live with my dad, or Grandma, I want to leave North Carolina, or why are we living like this, or why are we doing this? Because
The thing about it is he didn't know what was going on.
okay,
Whenever we had our whatever, he was never in the house. Um, he was never around whenever we would have disagreements, or even when that happened, he wasn't home either. So my son really didn't. He was actually in the dark about a lot of what was going on.
okay. So you also, not only did you lie to those friends that were closest to you,
Yeah.
but you also lied to your son about how your foot got shot.
Yes.
Okay. And so for yourself, you begin to believe your lies. Or is it just that your whole outlook was, I need this man because right now I can't take care of myself, and you're a great mom, so you're like, I need these kids taken care of.
Right.
And so you just accepted this type, like, you got shot in the foot. Like, I think that would have did it for me. So you really just said, this is the hand that I'm dealt, and I'm okay with it.
I wasn't okay with it. It's just the fact that I felt like at that point I didn't have many options.
Okay. Did you think about seeking help or options, or sit down and think about that? Or were you truly like, I love this man, he's a great dad to my son, and he is my daughter's father, and this, he lives here, and this is the life that we're going to recover from this, and we're going to move on?
At that point, no, I didn't. I forced myself to stay there temporarily just until I was able to get back on my feet, literally.
And once you got back on your feet, and he, of course, so when he was released from jail, he came home.
Yeah.
And when you got back on your feet, did you at that point say, I have a plan? Like, were you making a plan to exit him? Because this is your home. Or were you still like, it is what it is till it ain't what it ain't?
At that particular time, I didn't have an actual set plan, no. Like in my heart, I knew it was not going to get better. I did know that. But as far as me having an actual plan, I didn't. But I eventually developed one.
That's great. So, in developing that plan and moving forward, and I'm sure, I think, you and I talked prior, you move kind of in silence
Yes.
and developing your plan, your job, all of that. At the breaking point of the final straw, can you tell us what really, like, this is it?
When DSS took my kids.
And they took both of them?
Yes, because at the time my son was underage. So they took both of them. They were both in foster care. They got split up. My son aged out. My daughter, unfortunately, is still in foster care till this day. But that was the breaking point for me. And that's when I developed my plan.
Wow. Valencia, I don't even know where anyone that I know would find the strength having their kids placed in foster care, and then your son aging out. So he was able to come back to you.
Yes.
And your daughter still in foster care. So at this point, I'm sure that you, before they were placed in the foster care, I'm sure you contacted your mom or your family and said, look, I need, that's who everybody wants, someone in your family to take your kids, right?
No. When my kids got taken, my plan was to work my case plan to get them back. In the meantime, like you said, I was moving in silence. So my plan was I was saving up money, and once I got my daughter back, I was going to take both of my kids and leave North Carolina.
Okay.
Because when I would call, the cops, they kind of just kept telling me there wasn't much they can do. They kept telling me to get a restraining order or evict him. Only thing about that is I was told that those documents were not valid unless he was served. And understanding him, he was not going to allow them to serve him, considering he actually went and bought a Ring doorbell for the house, and only he had access to it. He wouldn't open that door for them to be served. So that's when
Wow.
that was the reason why I developed the plan to leave.
Wow. And this was your home. You own this home. Wow, this is just like an unbelievable story, but it's real and it happens every single day. And I'm so glad that you are putting this out here so that someone that's listening is hearing the story. And so once this was happening, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how does a man be okay with the children being removed from the home?
Oh, he wasn't okay.
Did that make him more irate or difficult to deal with or more abusive to you?
Yes and no. Um, he actually had a substance abuse problem, and that that of course made it a lot worse. And when Corona hit, that made it worse because he stopped going to work. So it was just constant back and forth. It was just.
And these are the things that you were unaware. You were unaware of this because again, you met this man online, which that doesn't isn't a main factor. But as you begin to, you said y'all move pretty quickly. So in that, I'm sure your advice would be to get to know somebody because most people, you know, when they date somebody, eventually, if it's gonna, you know, get serious, people do background checks on each other, or they start asking questions, or they see some mannerisms or behaviors that's like, okay, this may not be for me. And I am familiar with the eviction process and restraining orders and all of the above. So I think that you were doing your due diligence, and this was, and the children had been removed, so this was putting more fire to the, you know, flame to the fire.
Right.
So in that, it's just the two of you in that house because, of course, at this point we have reached shelter in place. The coronavirus was at its height.
Right.
So were you consistently abused every single day, or no, or maybe?
No, actually, he wasn't going to work, but I was.
Okay,
So
because
that it was to the point I hated going home. Like I would do. If anybody knows me, they know I hated overtime. But when I was in that situation, I made it my business to do overtime. Like I just did not want to go home. There was actually nights that when we would argue, I would literally sleep in my car. Like I just
in the driveway.
no, not in the driveway.
Okay. You would leave the home.
Yeah, we would get into arguments, and I would pull off, and I would just sleep in my car. That's happened a few times.
And at this point, you knew this. So you at this point right there, you knew that this is serious. This is abuse. Had you identified what was really happening?
Yes.
And so then, as time moved on, and I guess we came out of shelter in place, or you know, we were able to get out a little bit with mask and everything. Did it, you know, seem to take a turn, or was it still that this man was irate that the children were removed from the home? I know that was your fight, was getting my kids back, because that was your plan: get my kids back and be gone.
Right.
So was he doing the visits, and was he helping you to fight this case to get get y'all's kids back?
No. So that made it even more harder for me. No.
So what led up to? So at this point, was he able to go back to work, or was he at this point? You said there was a substance abuse problem.
He just chose not to go to work because they were doing all that unemployment stuff, and he was just like, I'm gonna just chill and whatever. And I was like, well, I'm gonna still go to work. But at that particular time, he actually started being nice to me. And I think the reason for that was because I think he felt like he was losing me. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of felt like, she's eventually going to leave. Because I kept leaving. Like I said, I kept leaving, sleeping in my car. Like, I just was not trying to be home. Like, if he was upstairs, I was downstairs. If he was downstairs, I was upstairs. Like, I just did not want to be nowhere near him. And he felt all of that. So with that, he tried to be nice and rekindle. But, that.
Because your whole heart and your mind and your everything was set on getting our kids back.
Right.
And he wasn't participating in that.
No.
So his feelings of my daughter is in foster care, placed in foster care. So it's okay.
It wasn't okay. He did a couple visits and he did a couple parenting classes, but he wasn't in it like he should have been. And I understood his reason for that, but at the same time, that's a whole nother conversation. I'll leave that for another time.
So at this point, your kids are still in foster care. I know your mom tried to be able to get your kids, right?
Well, no, my mother, she tried to get my daughter once I fast forward.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into detail yet because we didn't get to that point yet. But no, like I said, me and my mother, we had the agreement where I was trying to get them back, so therefore I told her, you know, it wasn't necessary at that time.
Okay. And then when did it become necessary that your mom?
When I went to jail.
Okay. So let's back up a little bit. So after that, what led up to you landing in jail? And this is, I know, the meat of the story.
Yeah.
I'm here for you because I know it's very emotional.
Yeah.
And there are, again, some parts that legally you can't discuss. But
Right.
what really led up to the title, which is Life and Death? Because your life was, I'm getting my kids back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave North Carolina, not just my home. I really don't care about anything else, my job, my this, my that. But I just want to get my kids back and leave the state of North Carolina because you felt justice wasn't being given to you after all you had been through. And this man could not be served. So what was the final, I guess, the star or the final episode that landed you in jail?
Again, I can't go into detail, so I'm going to just say this vaguely. I shot him one time in his chest, and he didn't make it. So that's what landed me in jail.
So once you went to jail,
Yes.
I mean, what was your whole? Were you in shock or were you like aware of what just happened? Like, what? Because immediately when you shot him, did you realize that he was? Did you think he was alive and you just shot him like you got shot in the foot?
No,
or did you realize that after the fact and you went that this somebody told you or that you were made aware that this person did not make it and you are in jail and at that point there's going to be some serious charges?
Originally, I knew he was still alive the last time I checked. I didn't find out he was gone until
you were in jail.
In the interrogation room.
Okay.
So when I found that out, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going home the next morning because I'm like, this was strictly self-defense. Evidence shows that. Again, I can't go into detail as far as how evidence shows that, but evidence clearly showed it was self-defense. So in my mind, I'm like, hey, I'm going home tomorrow.
And I'm going to get my kids back and I'm leaving North Carolina.
Right.
But it did not go that way.
Not at all.
So how long, when you found out, okay, this is not going self-defense, where you were able to, I'm sure lawyer up, and then at that point it became, you became really aware, like, I'm in jail and I'm not going home tomorrow. So at that point, where were you with like, what am I going to do? Because you still have your son.
When I got the paperwork that stated I got charged with first-degree murder, I just cried.
That's unbelievable.
I literally just cried for days. They literally had to put me on suicide watch because I just did not believe that my life got to this. Again, if you know me, you would understand where I'm coming from when I say that. So
you were actually charged with first-degree murder.
Yes.
Were you given, so when you got your arraignment, were you given a bond? You were like, okay, I'm going to bond out because this is not real.
That's and then when I got the paperwork, I'm thinking at least that. I'm thinking, okay, this happened on a Sunday. When I go to court tomorrow morning, I'm at least going to get a bond.
And bond out.
At least bond out.
Because your family, friends, everybody's going to bond me out.
Right. And in my mind, I'm just like I said, originally I'm thinking this is self-defense because, again, I knew that's what it was. We all know that's what it was. So in my mind, I really thought I was going home. But once I got the paper, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I got court in the morning. I'm at least going to get a bond. Mm-hmm. I get to court in the morning. There's newscasters there. And I'm just like, why is the news here? Like, I'm still like I'm all over the place.
Processing.
I'm like, well, what's going on? So when the judge said no bond, I lost it. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm really not going home.
Wow. So what was like? I'm sure to you, what is the next step? I
At
mean,
that,
in your thought. I mean, your thought process, like I'm not going home. What is the next step?
I couldn't even think that far. I couldn't think. Like I said, I cried. I cried until I went to sleep. That's all I did.
In jail.
That's it.
And
I couldn't do nothing else.
And so as we move, the timeline moves up. When were you actually? How did you get bailed out of jail? How did you get out of jail?
Um, when I tell you I had some support out here, thank you 413. I had support. I had people out here moving, working, and they actually were able to land me a paid attorney. Remember COVID was going on, so it was hard to get a court date at that time. So literally court was backed up, and I didn't get a bond hearing until February of 2021. I went to jail September 13, 2020. So it took me 5 months to get a bail. And that bail was $400,000.
Wow, that's just crazy. That's just really crazy. And so they were able to raise your bail. That's incredible. And so did that you getting bail? Did that come with stipulations? Like were you on house arrest? Could you move? Could you like go freely until you went to court? I know some things you cannot talk about, but once you got out, was there any? Were you free to? Were you just confined to your home, or were you free to go? What happened with your job?
When I first came home, they had me on a curfew, and I also had a ankle monitor. My curfew got taken off, and I was, given traveling privileges. My dad is fighting stage 4 cancer in Massachusetts, so they granted me traveling privileges. So right now I'm not on a curfew. I can really travel wherever I want to go. Only thing about it right now is I do still have an ankle monitor. I do have to pay for that. As far as the bond goes, I still have to pay for that. Because with the bond, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but that's a percentage that they charge you.
And you got to pay that?
Yes.
And pay for your ankle monitor?
Yes. And pay child support. I'm missing anything.
Wow. So, this is real. This story is just unreal. And I'm not sure if I can legally say the county that I've been advised, so I'm going to just say it is in North Carolina and it is in one of the surrounding counties. Yeah. This is just really unreal, like a $400,000 bond, an ankle monitor, and your children were removed, but your son has aged out, so he's back with you. Right. You're still standing. You're still like, are you in disbelief, or are you operating like? And I know that you said that you were put on your job is on hold. Like you didn't get fired from the post office.
No, I'm not fired from the post office, but I can't report until my case is resolved, which has put a crazy damper on my financial situation. I literally make probably half of what I was making at the post office.
And you are responsible for your mortgage and, of course, your son.
Yes. Bills, like I said, the bond still, ankle monitor. So I got extra bills making half the money I was making before.
Are you able to, or can you say, are you able to visit your daughter or have contact or communication with your daughter?
Yes, I see her once a week for 2 hours. My mother was actually trying to get her, but Massachusetts approved her, but North Carolina blocked it. That's a whole another fight I'm going through right now, trying to get her out of the system.
This is unbelievable. And so I know that is every week when that's what you're living for, really, or your fuel that you're hanging on to is that. Can you say or let us know, have you been given a court date?
For what case?
For the to go to court for your freedom.
No, that's.
Is it due to COVID?
I'm waiting for trial on that because I'm not taking a plea. So I'm waiting for a trial date right now for that.
I commend you for not taking a plea. So Valencia, where does your strength come from, my dear? Good Lord. I mean, I know you got your family a strong camp, and like you said, everybody hit the boots and raised this $400,000 bond, and you get to see your daughter once a week. And I thank God that your son is, has aged out and he is fighting this fight and is with you and loving on you. Uh, Tell us, I want to know, girl, where are you getting your strength from and just the ability to know that in self defense for the abuse that you put up for years? I mean, getting shot in the foot, bodily injuries, and that at the end of the day, you had to pull a gun and shoot someone, and at the end result there was death. But to get up every day and live this and still not know when you're going to trial, where are you pulling from? Where are you pulling from?
God and my babies.
And God is, he is doing it for you.
Yeah.
He is really doing it for you. And what advice would you give any male or female or family that is going through and live what you have? Because there has to be something at the end of this for you. God has a plan that you may be the person that's been willing to tell your story. What advice can you give me and all others, that if we suspect or we're seeing it or there is a red flag? Tell me, what advice would you give everyone today?
It doesn't get better, it gets worse, and get out before it's too late.
This is amazing. This is truly amazing. What are you doing I know that you have become an advocate and that you're out there and you are now accepting interviews. And for so long, I know the legalities of it because it was some on me, but you granted me the option and the platform for your story to be heard. So now I know that you are making this a crusade, and it is, and I'm part of it because this is unbelievable. And I know that the day that you go to trial, girl, there's going to be so many people outside.
I hope they're ready for it. Because that courthouse is going to be flooded.
It is, and it should be, because this story is it's unbelievable. So in that, I know that you're making it one of your missions. So I know that you're going to write about it, like write a book about it. I know that you're still trying to get your daughter back. I know that you're still on an ankle monitor. But one of the things is that you have become vocal. You are now taking interviews. You are now being an advocate. What do you want to accomplish out of your journey and your story? I know that you are going to be a spokesperson and you're teaming up and collaborating right now, in the length, of what you can do legally and what you can't do. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what your whole mission and vision is moving forward for domestic violence.
My mission eventually is to create a safe haven for domestic violence victims, somewhere to go where they know that they're safe and they can escape just to get there, separate from their partner, regroup, and figure out a plan to be successful.
And there are domestic violence shelters. There is hotlines, and there's some of that in place. Are you an advocate, or do you believe in them, or you think that they don't work? Because you said yourself, I did what I was told, which was I took out the restraining orders. I called the police. I, did all of that. And at the end of the day, I'm facing a murder trial.
Yeah. I want my approach to be a little different. Shelters I'm not going to fault a shelter because I've never been to one. I just want to have a place where it actually feels like home, where you have your own separate, your own separate kind of apartment for your family, not just go in a shelter and you're around all these different women going through what you're going through. Like, I want mine to be a little different than that.
I know that you're big on the legal part of it, and I think that you can wholeheartedly educate everyone that's, going through this or have been a victim or have experienced a little thing that can escalate, because you kept using the word escalate. Um, what would you advise legally? Like when the first time that happens, or I know that you are looking into like teaming up with some, making it illegal, affordable, because everybody don't have $400,000.
Yeah.
Um, funds and things like that to put in place for that. I think that is fantastic, and that's a great idea, because I don't know of anything like that. Because if you don't have it, you're gonna sit. When I say sit, I mean sit in jail.
That's true. That's definitely true. If you don't have the help and the support, you're definitely gonna sit. Um, First thing I would say is create a paper trail. If you are going through abuse, you have to have a paper trail, because if it escalates to that point and you have no evidence of that, it's going to be very hard for you to prove that. So you have to have a paper trail, whether it's 911 calls, whether it's telling a friend, whether it's saving text messages, taking pictures. Like, make sure you have a paper trail.
What about security systems? Because I know you spoke of that you guys had installed a ring system and cameras and stuff in the home. Can that footage be? Would you recommend that?
I would recommend that as well too. But the thing about that, I mean, a lot of the abuse occurs indoor, not outdoor. But there are, little cameras you can buy on Amazon, probably for cheap, if you want to put them around the house or something like that. I'm sure that'll work. But like I said, the main thing is, and I'm not condoning, I'm not saying, I want you to, go out there and, do, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying make sure that you have a paper trail. And the reason why I say that is because I recently heard about a woman in Georgia who, she is in my situation, but her stuff was not documented. So therefore, she's doing her time because it's kind of her word against nothing, because he's not here anymore. So when you don't have any evidence to show, it's going to be very hard to prove that in court.
Wow. So you have, of course, an attorney, and you have your documents, and your trial is a question mark, but it is upcoming.
Yes.
What is it that you would like to say to everyone? Because, you got the support over here, girl. Praying for you. And this is just an incredible story, and I'm glad that you took the time today. How can people reach out to you?
You can send me an email, Valencia _McLean at yahoo.com, VALENCIA _MCLEAN at yahoo.com. I'm also on Facebook under Young V, and you can contact me on either of those two platforms.
Are you on Instagram?
I am, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know the name.
So they can contact you through those measures. Because I think, you putting your story out there, or being, guests, and you are very adamant about becoming an advocate. And I'm just like amazed at how you're either numb to it, or you're just living through it.
I'm trying to get it over with.
Yeah.
I'm at the point I want to move on. I'm ready for this to be over and done with. Main thing, I just want my baby back.
I know this is just incredible. This is incredible. And in this time, I mean, you are pulling your strength from God. You are the most strongest woman I know, that, like, oh my gosh, like, wake up every day and be like, yeah, I've got a murder charge hanging over me, and I'm awaiting trial. You have started a business.
Yes.
With Sweet Treats. Tell us a little bit about that.
V's Treats. They are cheesecake cups that I make, trying to make some extra money on the side, but they are delicious, and they're actually available for shipping as well. So to place those orders, you can contact me on those two platforms.
Wow, you started a business. You are only here in North Carolina because of what's your legalities and your waiting trial, and that you get to see your daughter every Monday. Your dad is facing
fighting cancer.
I know that people have reached out to you, and are you feeling the love, and
oh yeah, definitely,
knowing that all of that, but just depending on God, and you just never ever know. But I want to thank you. You've given us your contact information. I hope that people reach out to you. I thank you for being and telling your being on the Conversations podcast today and telling your story and being transparent, because this is a little different. This is actually a murder charge, and you never know who is going to survive at the end. And even though this was called life and death, you're living your life each day to the best that you can. And at the end of the day, that person, there was a death. But knowing that it's real, domestic violence, you've given us some great tips. So do not ignore this. It's going to get worse, I think you said, before it gets better. So I want to thank everyone that's listening. This was a powerful story. There will be a part two. We are going to come back and have you on either before your trial, if you once you get your date, or after it, because I do believe in victory, and I think that this is just incredible. This was a great story. I hope that it helps someone today, because that's what we're all about: empowering and helping, but bringing awareness. There are a lot of outlets and connections that if you know someone that is part of or facing or suffering from physical abuse or verbal abuse, please contact someone. Please don't let this go. You've heard Valencia say it's only going to get worse. Mental health is real, y'all. It's a real deal. So there are a lot of mental health agencies. There's a lot of people out there that can help. And do not be afraid. Tell someone. Talk to someone. Just like she said, I lied to everybody, and those that knew, I just isolated myself. Please don't do that, because suicide is also real. So this was a great episode for me. It was near and dear. It was like, wow, like this was very intense. But I want to thank everybody for it. And this will conclude part 1 of domestic violence, life and death, from Miss Valencia McLean. Please keep her in your prayers. And the strength that she has. She's just an amazing person that I'm glad that I know. I'm glad that I've met. I've enjoyed getting to know you. I really have. So we're going to come back with part 2 on Conversations. And also Conversations has added a new product. We have a new baby, which is called Vitamin V. I know, this is crazy. But every Monday, we will post a motivational, because Mondays is one of the days that is very disliked by V. Simmons. So why not do it and motivate and take my vitamin V on Monday? So that will happen this coming Monday. It will drop at 6 a.m. I know that is so early. Girl, isn't that early? But it's happening. It's coming. It's happening. So we're excited about vitamin V. Along with Conversations, I want to thank my media guy, Mr. D. Williams. And Valencia, I thank you again for just sharing your story, girl. It's real. It hit home with me, and we're rooting for you.
Thank you.
And please, if you are facing domestic violence or in it, please contact someone. Contact a hotline. Call the police. Do not let this go unnoticed, or wait till it's too late that someone's life is taken. We'd like to thank you. And that is the end of the episode on Conversations. Thank you, everyone.